The video contains 25 items professional education topics. If you wish to have a video with explanation or majorship and general education test types, don't hesitate to write in the comment section. Are you ready? The test is about to start. 1. Which theory operates on the stimulus-response principle, which means all behaviors are caused by external stimuli? A. Contextual theory. B. Behaviorist theory. C. Cognitive theory. D. Constructivist theory. Miss Erica in her biology class accompanies her discussion with interesting visual aids. She strongly believes that students learn better when lessons are presented with images, real or imagined aside from mere lecture method. Which learning theory does she upholds? A. Dual coding theory. B. Information processing theory. C. Meaningful reception learning theory. D. Social cognitive theory. Miss Rita is an excellent physical education teacher. She started teaching volleyball to her grade 2 class. Despite all her efforts, her class does not seem to learn how to play the game. What law of learning was disregarded? A. Law of disuse. B. Law of effect. C. Law of exercise. D. Law of readiness. Teacher J, a physical education teacher, demonstrates the new skill to be learned so that his students can watch him and later reproduce the skill. What learning theory is associated with the situation? A. Dual coding learning theory. B. Information processing. C. Schema learning theory. D. Social learning. Patrice is always fearful of freely roaming dogs but does not mind dogs in a pen or on a leash. What feature of classical conditioning is exhibited? A. Discrimination. B. Extinction. C. Generalization. D. Practice. A. Music teacher is careful in planning activities for each lesson. He praises liberally and rewards correct answers. What view of learning is exhibited? A. Classical conditioning. B. Meaningful learning. C. Operant conditioning. D. Social learning. Which of the theories of learning presents or states that learning skills are hierarchically arranged? A. Cumulative learning. B. Meaningful learning. C. Social cognitive learning. D. Theory of instruction. Which of the following best describes what meaningful learning is? A. When what is to be learned is new and easy for the students. B. Materials presented are difficult and challenging to the students. C. When the materials to be learned is related to what students already know. D. Students find the lessons easy and relevant to what was assigned to them. 9. Rita easily remember dates and events in history. What component of long-term memory does Rita have? A. Creative thinking. B. Critical thinking. C. Reflective thinking. D. Logical thinking. An Earth Science has just completed a unit on the Sun. As she recognizes her next unit on other stars, she uses the Sun as a frame of reference. What view of learning was used? A. Discovery learning. B. Informative learning. C. Meaningful learning. D. Transfer learning. Which is an application of cognitive approach to motivation? A. Explain the reasons for studying the topic. B. Create a supportive classroom climate for students. C. Provide clear and prompt feedback on assignments. D. Begin lessons with challenging questions and conflicting events. The first People Power was held in February 25, 1986. What kind of knowledge is presented? A. Conditional knowledge. B. Cognitive knowledge. C. Domain-specific knowledge. D. Procedural knowledge. The students of Mrs. Reyes were not able to learn the concepts that she presented yesterday, so she taught the same concepts again, but this time using a different teaching method. What principle of learning was applied? A. Concepts should be presented in varied and different ways. B. Effort was put forth when tasks are challenging. C. Learning by doing is more effective than just by sitting and listening. D. Learning is aided by formulating and asking questions. Alvin is a transferee and feels uneasy with his new school. His teacher is very accommodating, warm, and caring. Alvin felt comfortable with the teacher display of genuine warmth. The teacher is consistent in his manner and Alvin began to associate school with the teacher's warmth. Which theory is being illustrated? A. Meaningful learning. B. Operant conditioning. C. Classical conditioning. D. Observational learning. After just being introduced to another guest in the party, Tom cannot remember the name of the guest he was introduced to. In what memory stage was the information stored in? A. Episodic memory. B. Semantic memory. C. Sensory memory. D. Working memory. Vygotsky claimed that social interaction is important for learning. What does this imply? A. Children are independent problem solvers. B. Children learn from adults and other children. C. Children learn by passive presentation of information. D. Children in the crib has no learning yet, since they are not capable of interaction. How would you help a student who is intelligent but is underachieving in class? A. Provide challenging activities which he/she can accomplish. B. Recognize his talents by asking him/her to help other students with their work. C. Identify the immediate causes of difficulties that cause his/her being an underachiever. D. Allow him/her to work with the slow learner group to cope with the academic needs of the lesson. Mrs. Corpus always makes sure that her school classroom is well organized and clean. She puts up interesting and colorful visuals on the bulletin boards. What principle of motivation was applied? A. Incentives motivate learning. B. Internal motivation is longer lasting and more self-directive than is external motivation. C. Motivation is enhanced by the way in which instructional material is organized. D. The environment can be used to focus the student's attention on what needs to be learned. For every correct answer, the teacher would give a star to her students. What schedule of reinforcement was used? A. Fixed interval. B. Fixed ratio. C. Variable interval. D. Variable ratio. Marga, a 6-year-old, always asked her playmates to sit in front of her small blackboard and she plays teacher. Her mother is a teacher. What theory explains Marga's behavior? A. Classical conditioning. B. Operant conditioning. C. Social learning. D. Information processing. What should the teacher do to help students learn psychomotor skills? A. Teacher uses verbal explanation and description of the movements in addition to live demonstration of the movements. B. Teacher provides feedback to the learner about his/her progress. C. Teacher encourages the learner to practice, in order to maintain his/her sharpness of the movements. D. All of the above. The teacher presented a new lesson wherein the students were asked to work on a new project which was somewhat complicated. The students showed interest while working on the project. What principle applies to the situation? A. Effort was put forth when tasks are challenging. B. Lessons should be presented in varied and different ways. C. Meaningful materials are readily learned than nonsense materials. D. Teachers should provide opportunities for meaningful and appropriate practice. Maturation should precede certain types of learning. How is this applied in the classroom? A. Concepts should be taught from simple to complex. B. Consider the age level of students in assigning tasks. C. Follow the interest of students in assigning tasks. D. Give the same task to all students in a particular grade level. Luce easily learns a lesson when she is working with laboratory equipment but hardly remembers a lesson the teacher lectured on. What type of learner is Luce? A. Auditory learner. B. Kinesthetic learner. C. Tactile learner. D. Visual learner. Which of the following statements about motivation is false? A. External motivation is longer lasting and more self-directive than internal motivation. B. Internal motivation is fueled by one's goals or ambitions. C. Motivation is enhanced by the way in which the instructional material is organized. D. Motivation to perform is affected by expectancy and value.